Formula One is on the brink of its biggest shake-up in years, but not everyone is convinced it's for the better. The FIA has finally broken its silence on the 2026 regulations, but what they revealed shocked even themselves. Drivers have raised red flags that weren't even on the FIA's radar, and whispers are already circling that stars like Max Verstappen could walk away from the sport entirely if these changes drain the excitement out of racing. The question is simple but brutal. How do you keep drivers happy and fans hooked when the cars could be as much as 2.5 seconds slower than what we're watching right now? And even more worrying, has Formula One become too artificial in its chase for balance, sparking subtle warnings from its biggest champion? The upcoming rules have become one of the most debated topics in the paddock. And for good reason. Several drivers, Verstappen, Lance Stroll and even Charles Leclerc, have already voiced doubts about whether the new generation of cars will be fun to drive at all. The FIA's head of single-seaters, Nicolas Tombazis, insists the conversation has been focused on the wrong details, especially when it comes to raw lap times. For years, F1 has seen cars fluctuate between faster and slower eras, and Tombazis believes drivers adapt quickly. In his words, stepping into a car that's 1.5 seconds off the pace might feel underwhelming at first, but after a few runs, the difference fades into the background. He argues the sport shouldn't obsess over stopwatch numbers when the bigger picture, safety, sustainability and long-term competitiveness, matters more. That doesn't silence the skeptics, though. Many drivers fear the new 50-50 split between internal combustion and electric power won't deliver the same thrill as the current engines. They worry the regulations will rob the cars of their raw character, leaving them less engaging to push to the limit. Verstappen has been especially vocal, reminding fans and officials alike that if Formula One strays too far from being pure racing, he might cut his career short. And if that happens, the sport would lose not just a multiple-time world champion, but one of its biggest audience draws. The FIA counters this by pointing to the sport's progress. Tombazis notes how innovations like the Halo have saved lives and proven how much F1 can evolve responsibly. He insists that once drivers adjust, lap times being 1 second or 2 slower won't matter. The real concern, he says, is preventing a repeat of 2014 when one team's dominance sucked the fun out of the championship. That's why the FIA has worked tirelessly to balance performance, and early signs suggest no single team will run away with an advantage. Still, the doubts remain. According to FIA simulations, the 2026 cars will indeed start out 1 to 2.5 seconds slower per lap. But with development, they'll claw much of that time back. The unknown is whether the balance of power between manufacturers will hold steady. At the moment, giants like Mercedes, Ferrari and Aston Martin appear to have the strongest foundations thanks to their engine programs. And so the debate rages on. Are slower, more sustainable cars a price worth paying for the future of Formula One? Or will these changes alienate the very drivers and fans who make the sport what it is? One thing is certain, the FIA's gamble will shape the next era of racing, and its success or failure could define whether stars like Verstappen stay in the sport or walk away for good. Even with the FIA's reassurances, not every driver is convinced the 2026 regulations will be enjoyable. Charles Leclerc in particular has taken a unique stance on the matter. He believes the adaptation process will be so extreme that drivers will have to erase years of instinct and muscle memory, essentially starting all over again. For him, the shift feels like hitting the reset button on an entire career. In his own words, the Monegasque admitted that forgetting everything he has learned since the age of 4 is going to feel unnatural. Having to overwrite decades of experience will be strange, but at the same time, he sees it as a challenge, an opportunity to reinvent his driving style and uncover performance in new ways. Still, he emphasizes just how unfamiliar the new cars will feel compared to what the grid is used to today. Leclerc isn't alone in voicing doubts. Lance Stroll has also been outspoken, criticising the new rulebook as over-artificialised, suggesting that too many restrictions are stripping Formula One of its raw identity. Many fans and pundits have echoed similar concerns, arguing that F1 risks losing the very spirit that makes it thrilling. Yet, at the end of the day, only the FIA can steer through this uncertainty, and nothing will be fully clear until the first laps of testing in 2026. Early simulator feedback from both Leclerc and Stroll hints that there are areas needing urgent attention, but the ultimate verdict will only come once the real cars hit the track. On the other side of the debate, Fernando Alonso has chosen to be more optimistic. His team has already shifted significant focus toward 2026, which Alonso believes is a sign that the direction is correct. For him, just because the overhaul is radical doesn't automatically mean the sport is headed for decline. He admits, however, that legendary high-speed circuits like Spa and Suzuka may initially lose some of their magic due to lower downforce and reduced grip. After just one simulator session, Alonso said it was difficult to draw firm conclusions, and he'll reserve judgment until he gets behind the wheel of a real car. Formula One has always been about innovation, and with veterans like Alonso and Lewis Hamilton supporting the move, there's cautious hope that the regulations could bring fresh energy. Hamilton, now representing Ferrari, welcomed the innovation, acknowledging that every rule change forces drivers and teams into steep learning curves that drive creativity and problem solving. But he also admitted there's risk involved, reminding fans that sweeping changes can go either way. For him, the challenge lies in adapting, and that's what keeps the sport alive. Meanwhile, speed is one area where concerns seem less justified. Mercedes boss Toto Wolff has gone as far as suggesting that the next generation of cars could reach top speeds of 400 kilometers per hour. That jaw-dropping figure has also been mentioned by Aston Martin reserve driver Felipe Drugovich, who described it as both exciting and terrifying. At such velocity, cars will explode out of corners with unprecedented force, giving drivers the sensation of being strapped to rockets. So here we are. A sport at a crossroads. The FIA defends its vision, Tom Bazis insists the changes are manageable, but the drivers remain split between skepticism and optimism. The real answers will only come once 2026 arrives, but the stakes couldn't be higher. What do you think about the incoming regulations and the FIA's defensive stance? Do you believe these cars will enhance the sport, or do you fear it could dilute the thrill? And drop your thoughts in the comments below. And once you do that, don't miss the next video waiting for you right here on the screen.